Episode 1, The Legend Returns. Picture, if you will, the township of Leeds Hollow. Population 406, 407, depending on whether the thing in the cedar swamp is home and whether it cares to be counted that day. It is by every measure an ordinary town, a diner, a hardware store, a Methodist church with a roof that has leaked since the Carter administration, a volunteer fire department whose annual pancake breakfast counts as a major social event, and a winged, hoofed, red-eyed creature of legend named Marv. To the outside world, the Jersey Devil is the terror of the Pine Barrens, a monster blamed for 3 centuries of missing livestock, strange noises, and poor decisions made after midnight. To the people of Leeds Hollow, he is the reason the diner orders pork roll by the crate, and the reason you do not, under any circumstances, leave your trash cans uncovered on a Tuesday. Nobody remembers why Tuesday. Some traditions survive because questioning them seems unwise. Tonight, the pork roll sits untouched, and in a town built quietly around the appetites of its monster, that is the kind of silence people notice. Because when Marv stops eating, it usually means something is wrong. Tonight, something was. Marv watched the campers from a pine branch. There were 6 of them around a fire. Technically, there was a fire. Nobody appeared interested in it. A campfire was supposed to be the heart of an evening in the Pine Barrens. Humans had spent thousands of years staring into flames. Fires had inspired stories, songs, several religions, and at least one regrettable cult. These 6 had turned theirs into a phone charging station. The blue glow off their screens outshone it. One young man watched a video of a raccoon stealing a birthday cake. Another watched 2 strangers argue about whether cereal qualified as soup. A young woman scrolled through photographs of a dog in tiny hats. Marv considered all this for a while. He was not entirely sure what he was looking at. The dog, at least, seemed respectable. An empty beer can hit the ground. Nobody picked it up. A second followed, then a chip bag. The Pine Barrens had survived droughts, wildfires, hurricanes, and several poorly conceived housing developments. It might finally be undone by people who could not carry their trash 10 feet. 300 years ago, people entered these woods with respect. They carried lanterns. They told ghost stories. They jumped at every strange sound. Now they drove into one of the most famous haunted forests in America and spent the whole night watching videos of other people driving into forests. One of them looked up. Marv tensed. Finally. The young man was taking a selfie. He made the same expression 6 times before deciding one of them was different, then sent it off into the internet. A moment later, he beamed. Validation had arrived. Marv could not tell from where. Fine. Somebody needed to be terrified, preferably all 6. He left the branch without a sound. Amateurs charged around the woods, roaring and breaking things. Professionals understood pacing. The first noise came from the dark beyond the fire, a soft rustle, just enough to register. Nothing. One camper scratched his nose. Another laughed at his screen. Phase 2. A long, mournful howl rolled through the trees, the sort that had once sent hunting parties sprinting for civilization. One camper looked up, removed an earbud, listened, and put it back in. Phase 3. The bushes erupted. Branches shook. Leaves flew. A large shape moved through the dark. A young woman glanced over. "Probably a deer," she said, and went back to her phone. Marv rose to his full height. Wings spread, eyes burning, smoke curling from his nostrils. 7 feet of horns and claws and ancient intent, lit from above by the moon. It was by any honest measure magnificent. Nothing, no screams, no running. One camper raised a hand. "Hey man, could you move a little? You're blocking my signal." Even the crickets seemed embarrassed. Marv lowered his wings. "You know what? Fine." Nobody looked up. "Enjoy your haunted forest?" He turned and stomped toward the trees. "Hey!" a voice called. He stopped. Maybe there was hope. Maybe somebody had finally recognized him. He turned. The camper pointed at him. You know where I can charge my phone." Marv was gone before he could commit a felony. Marv's house sat in the middle of the swamp, which was exactly as cozy as it sounds, and somehow worked anyway. Antlers over the fireplace, family photos on the walls. One showed Debbie and Marv on their wedding day, Marv in full monster form, Debbie in camouflage holding a shotgun, both of them smiling. It had been that kind of wedding. Tonight, Marv sat in an old recliner, muddy hooves resting on the footstool, staring into the fire. Miserable. The front door opened. Debbie came in, 40-ish, tired, still in her diner uniform. Marvin leads. Marv winced. "Get your muddy feet off that stool. I just mopped." They're hooves. They're muddy. The feet came down. Debbie hung up her coat. 13 hours, she said. 13. You know how many times I had to explain what oat milk is today? No, neither do I. She looked at him then, at the fire, at the face. What's wrong? Nobody's afraid anymore. Debbie sighed. 6 of them, Marv said. Right there. Perfect setup. Campfire. Fog. The whole thing. Nothing. One kid asked where the nearest charging station was. Debbie tried not to laugh. She failed. See? Marv said. Nobody respects the craft anymore. She sat down beside him. You remember when we met? Marv groaned. Please don't tell this story. Deep in the woods, middle of the night, you jumped out from behind a tree. Classic entrance. And immediately tripped over a root, ambushed by terrain. You landed face first in a puddle. I know. You looked up waiting for me to scream. Everybody screams. I laughed so hard I couldn't breathe. A reluctant smile crept onto Marv's face. Then I helped you up. You smelled like bug spray. And here we are, 20 years later. She wrapped an arm around him. The world's weird right now. People barely notice each other. Doesn't mean you're not important. The town needs sightings. The town needs tax revenue. Big difference. She kissed his forehead. I'll make pork roll, your favorite. Extra cheese? I'm not made of money. She headed for the kitchen. Marv watched the fire. The smile faded. The crisis remained. The Leeds Hollow Diner sat on Main Street between the hardware store and a gift shop that sold Jersey Devil merchandise manufactured somewhere in Ohio. Like most small-town diners, it doubled as restaurant, community center, gossip exchange, weather station, and occasional emergency management office. The bell over the door jingled. A few people looked up. Oh, hey, Marv. He nodded. Nobody asked where he had been. Nobody ever did. When a man spends 30 years living alone in a swamp, people stop expecting explanations. He was just a local who never took off his coat and had a perpetual sunburn. He slid into his booth. Debbie spotted him at once, carrying 3 plates, 2 coffees, and the expression of a woman who had recently been asked for gluten-free pancakes. What are you doing here? She said. Existing. Shouldn't you be working? I'm on break. Since when? Since this morning. She set a coffee in front of him, narrowed her eyes, and moved off to another table. Marv looked into the cup. At the counter sat Earl Dawson and Frank Murphy, both old enough to remember when people still carried maps. I'm telling you, Frank said, nobody's seen him in months. Saw something last fall, said Earl. That was a turkey. Big turkey. A turkey in a traffic cone doesn't make it the Jersey Devil, Frank said. You don't know that, a younger voice cut in. Tyler Harris, 22, recently home from college. The sort of young man who spoke with total confidence about subjects he had discovered the previous Thursday. You know there's no such thing as the Jersey Devil, right? The diner went quieter, not silent, the way a church gets quieter when somebody swears. It's a story, Tyler said. A marketing gimmick. My generation doesn't buy that stuff. Your generation buys bottled water for dogs, said Earl. That's different. How? Tyler opened his mouth, closed it, thought better of it. Across the room, Mrs. Patterson spoke up. I saw the devil in 73. No, you didn't. I absolutely did. You also said your house was haunted. It was haunted, she insisted. The furnace made noises. The ghost used the furnace. Several of the older patrons nodded. Tyler rubbed his forehead. From his booth, Marv almost cheered up. At least somebody still believed. Then Jessica Brown joined in, president of the town council, 35, practical, the sort of person who used spreadsheets recreationally. Honestly, it doesn't matter whether he's real. Of course it matters, said Earl, not economically. That got the room. The cryptid tours are down, the festival's down, the motel's barely hanging on, nobody comes here anymore. People used to come looking for the devil, Frank said. Exactly, used to. The word landed harder than she meant it to. Marv looked into his coffee. I'm just saying maybe we need something new, Jessica went on. A music festival, a brewery, a giant roadside statue, anything. Tyler nodded. Right, nobody cares about the Jersey Devil anymore. The sentence hit Marv like a shovel. Nobody cares. Not nobody's afraid. Not nobody believes. Nobody cares. Through the window stood the welcome sign. Welcome to Leeds Hollow, home of the Jersey Devil. Its paint peeling, one corner hanging loose, unrepaired. Marv looked at it for a long moment. Across the room, Debbie paused. She knew that look. 20 years together gave a person a talent for spotting an emotional disaster before it arrived. Marv stood, left $3 beside the coffee cup, and headed for the door. Marv? She said. He did not answer. The bell jingled, the door closed. Outside, under the weathered sign, he stopped. For 300 years, people had crossed rivers and roads and eventually state lines to find him. Now they could not agree whether he was worth keeping around. For the first time in a very long while, the Jersey Devil minded. He spent the rest of the day in the pines, which usually helped and this time did not. By evening, he had reached a verdict. The trouble was not that he was old. Old implied dignity, history, respect. The trouble was that he was outdated, which is what happens when somebody decides your profession can be replaced by an app. The verdict bothered him enough that the next morning he stood outside the Leeds Hollow Public Library, working up the nerve to go in. Libraries made him nervous. People expected things of you in libraries: knowledge, reading, indoor voices. The bell jingled as he entered. Mrs. Callahan looked up from the desk. She had run the place for nearly 30 years and could identify an overdue book from 50 feet. Morning, Marv. Morning. You returning anything? No. Because according to my records, you still have a book on birdwatching from 1997. I might finish it. Marv. Fine, I lost it. I know. A pause. I need the internet, he said. She removed her glasses. The internet. Yes. Voluntarily. I'm conducting research. She considered him, then pointed at a row of computers. Computer 3. 2 still smells funny. 10 minutes later, he was still staring at the monitor. Mrs. Callahan wandered over. Problem. The mouse isn't working. She looked down. The mouse sat untouched. Marv was poking the screen with one finger. Marv, that's the monitor. Then why does it move when I touch it? That's your reflection. Eventually, the internet surrendered and let him in. He typed, scary things, thousands of results. The first involved clowns, the second involved taxes. The third was a video, top 10 cryptids that will keep you awake at night. He clicked. A dramatic narrator counted down. The Goat Man. He's not even trying, Marv muttered. The Flatwoods Monster, something called the Fresno Night Screamer, Bigfoot, Mothman, several photographs that were clearly of bushes, no Jersey Devil. Number 1 arrived with a flourish, the Ohio Grassman. Marv sat in stunned silence. He found a discussion board. Is the Jersey Devil still relevant? and against his own better judgment clicked. Pretty sure it's just a bird. Most overrated cryptid ever. Looks fake. Mothman clears. He did not know what clears meant, but was fairly certain it was an insult. Never understood the hype. Just a flying goat. 300 years, thousands of terrified witnesses, and somewhere on the internet he had been reduced to livestock. Mrs. Callahan returned with a mug of tea and read over his shoulder, "You seem awfully invested in cryptids." Hypothetically, she exhaled. Whenever somebody starts with hypothetically, I know I'm about to regret it. Hypothetically, if I were the Jersey Devil, you're not. Obviously. Good. But if I were, how would I become relevant again? For the town. Leeds Hollow's built on the legend. People used to come for it. They don't anymore. She looked at him a moment. There was concern under the question, and everyone knew Marv loved that town. "All right," she said. "Let's pretend. First problem, your branding is terrible." "Excuse me?" "See? Defensive already. The Jersey Devil is a winged demon that haunts the Pine Barrens." "Exactly." She pointed at a photo of Mothman on the screen. "Simple design, recognizable silhouette, strong regional identity, West Virginia committed to the bit. The Jersey Devil's been around longer." "Maybe, but Mothman has a festival. We have a festival. Have you been lately? Half the vendors sell funnel cakes and phone cases. One booth was pushing alpaca socks." "What does that have to do with the Jersey Devil?" "Exactly." He slumped. She pulled up a chair. "Let's try something. Pretend I'm a tourist. Convince me to visit Leeds Hollow. The Jersey Devil lives here." "Okay." He's terrifying. "Anything else?" "There are trees." "Marv." "A lot of trees." "You're proving my point. They're very nice trees." She rubbed her temples, then stood, straightened her cardigan, cleared her throat, and spread her arms. "Greetings, mortals. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Please stop. Ring the notification bell for more hauntings." "Mrs. Callahan." "This week we're exploring an abandoned Wawa. There are limits." She sat back down, perfectly serious, and pointed at the screen. "Millions of views, millions of followers, people watching other people react to things, people watching people watch people react to things." "Nobody can possibly enjoy that," Marv said. "Apparently they do." For a while they both watched the videos roll past. Ghost hunters, influencers, urban legends, cryptids. Nobody seemed to care whether any of it was real. They just wanted to watch something worth paying attention to. "So what you're saying is the Jersey Devil needs publicity?" "If we're continuing the hypothetical." "We are." "Then yes, probably." He took out a small notebook and wrote, "Save the Jersey Devil." Beneath it, publicity, social media, modernize. "You're taking notes," she said. "This is important." "Whatever you do," she told him, "commit to it. People can tell when you're not genuine, and if you're going to represent the town, do it proudly." "Proudly," he repeated as a man might repeat his orders before a campaign. She returned to the desk, rather pleased with herself. It was not every day you helped a local solve a problem. Across the room, Marv opened the notebook again and added one more line. "Create account." The words sat there, simple, harmless, reasonable, the sort of thing that starts disasters. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere over the Pine Barrens. Marv did not notice. For the first time in days, he had a plan, which historically was right about when the trouble began. Episode 2, Fear Me, Please 'em. Marv did not go home. A wiser creature might have taken the evening to think. A more cautious one might have asked his wife. A creature with any instinct for self-preservation might have spent the night quietly reconsidering everything Mrs. Callahan had said. Marv went to the hardware store. The Leeds Hollow hardware store had supplied the town with nails, rope, paint, plumbing parts, gossip, and emergency batteries since 1948. It also kept a small electronics aisle that nobody trusted and everybody used. Marv stood in front of it with his notebook open. Publicity, modernize, create account, and beneath that in fresh ink, equipment, and surveyed the shelves. Extension cords, flashlights, a package of zip ties illustrated by a smiling man using them incorrectly. Then he saw the ring light. According to the box, it was essential for creators. Marv frowned at the word. Once, people had been blacksmiths and farmers and undertakers, professions with weight, professions where a man could point at a thing and say, I made that or I buried that and be understood. Now they were creators, of what the box did not say. Still, the woman on the packaging looked confident, and Marv respected confidence. He carried it to the counter. Ned Wheeler looked up from a crossword. Afternoon, Marv. Ned. Ned glanced at the ring light, then at Marv, then back at the light. You starting a makeup channel? No. Shame, you've got strong cheekbones. Marv stared at him. Just saying. I need it for publicity. For what? For a dangerous moment, the truth stood on the edge of Marv's tongue. Then it fell off and something worse took its place. Local heritage. Ned nodded as though that explained everything. In a town like Leeds Hollow, it nearly did. You want batteries with that? Does it need batteries? Everything needs batteries now. Marv bought the batteries. He also bought a tripod, a clip-on microphone, a package of memory cards, and a roll of duct tape, on the principle that no one had ever made a bad situation worse by owning duct tape. Marv believed this. Marv was about to test it. By the time he reached the cabin, rain had begun tapping the trees. Debbie sat at the kitchen table sorting bills, an activity that turns even cheerful people into philosophers. She looked up. Her attention moved from Marv to the ring light box, to the tripod, to the duct tape. No, she said, you don't know what this is. I know what enough of it is. I'm modernizing. That's what scares me. He set everything on the table. A battery rolled across the water bill and she stopped it with one finger. What happened? I went to the library. I repeat, what happened? I conducted research. Mrs. Callahan helped. That woman has run that library since before I was born. She should know better. Debbie leaned back. Show me. He turned the notebook toward her. Save the Jersey Devil, publicity, social media, modernize, create account. She closed her eyes for a second. Honey. Don't honey me. I'm not honeying you. You use that voice when you think I'm about to do something foolish. I have had a great deal of practice. The town is dying. That stopped her. The humor went out of his voice. You heard them at the diner. The tours are gone. The festival's barely a festival. The young ones don't believe, and the old ones are... He did not finish. He did not need to. I thought people weren't afraid of me anymore. He tapped the notebook. Maybe they just don't see me. Rain ticked against the porch roof. Debbie was quiet a while. And you think this fixes it? I think I have to try. She looked at the ring light. With that? Apparently, yes. She sighed, the sigh of a woman who knew the universe was about to make her clean something. Fine, try. You'll help? I did not say that. You implied it. I implied I wouldn't stop you. That's support. That's exhaustion. He almost cheered up. She leveled a finger at him. One rule. No filming in the house in full devil form. Why? Because last time you spread your wings in the living room, you took out my grandmother's lamp. That lamp was unstable. That lamp survived 3 moves, a flood, and my Aunt Carol. Nobody survives Aunt Carol. The lamp did, she added, and no smoke breathing near the curtains. That was one time. They were new curtains. They were flammable. Most curtains are. He gathered the equipment. Where are you going? The shed. It has atmosphere. It has spiders. Also atmosphere. The shed stood behind the cabin, leaning slightly to the left in the manner of a structure that had once heard bad news and never recovered. Inside were tools, old fishing nets, jars of screws, a broken lawn chair, and a box marked Christmas that contained no Christmas items whatsoever. Marv cleared a space and set up the tripod. This took 11 minutes, 3 curses in 2 languages, and 1 intense disagreement with a plastic clamp. Then came the ring light, which had settings, brightness levels, and a small remote marked with symbols that resembled warnings left by a vanished civilization. After some experimentation, a perfect white circle filled the shed. Marv stepped into it wearing his human face. The effect was not terrifying. It made him look like a cryptid applying for a mortgage. He lowered the angle. Now he looked like a cryptid who had received bad medical news. He dimmed it further. Now he looked haunted. That was closer. He pressed record. The phone watched him. He watched it back. He cleared his throat. "I am the Jersey Devil." A spider dropped from the ceiling and landed on his nose. He went cross-eyed trying to see it. The spider was unimpressed. He stopped recording, removed it with great respect, and set it on a shelf. "Not now, Gerald." He began again. "I am the Jersey Devil." He shifted into his true form. That part, at least, was no trouble. "For 300 years I have haunted the Pine Barrens." A noise came from the doorway. A raccoon stood there, holding one of his batteries in its small hands. "Put that down," Marv said. The raccoon did not. "Gerald, don't look at me like that." The spider, being a spider, did not look at him at all. The raccoon left with the battery. He fetched a new battery and started over. No spider, no raccoon. Good. "I am the Jersey Devil. For 300 years I have haunted the Pine Barrens. You may have heard the stories." The ring light stuttered. "You may have dismissed them." It stuttered again. "You may have called me." The light died. Dark swallowed the shed. Marv stood there. Then the light came back, twice as bright, and Marv startled, and the phone tipped, and the tripod folded, and a jar of screws leapt off the shelf and detonated across the floor, from the house. "Everything all right?" Marv stood in the wreckage. "Yes." A pause. That sounded like a lie. It was an equipment issue. By some miracle, the phone was still recording. Marv watched the playback. It showed him declaring himself the Jersey Devil, attempting an air of mystery, and then being assaulted by lighting equipment and gravity. It was not dignified. It was not frightening. It was unfortunately funny. He should delete it. Any reasonable creature would delete it. Instead, he remembered Mrs. Callahan. People can tell when you're not genuine. He was genuine. Genuinely humiliated, perhaps, but genuine. He opened the account page. Official Jersey Devil was taken. So was Real Jersey Devil. So was the Real Jersey Devil. So was Jersey Devil Official. Marv grew increasingly offended. Who were these people? Official Jersey Devil Real, taken. Official Jersey Devil Real not fake, taken. At last, in a moment of weakness, he entered Jersey Devil Real not fake _197, available. He did not care for the number. It implied there had been 196 before him. There was only one Jersey Devil. The incident in 1884 did not count. He uploaded the video. The screen asked for a caption. He thought carefully, then typed, "Fear me." He paused, added please, deleted please, put it back, deleted it again. Final caption, "The legend returns." He pressed post. For several seconds, nothing. Marv sat in the wreckage and watched the screen. One view, he leaned closer. 2, 3, he sat up straighter. Then a comment. He tapped it. Nice costume, lol. He stared. Another appeared. Is this satire? A third, Swamp Dad energy. Marv blinked. Swamp what? The views climbed. 7, 12, 19. Then they stopped. 19 people had looked upon the Jersey Devil in his own shed, beneath professional lighting and a fresh layer of loose screws. No one had screamed. No one had run. No one had asked if he was real. The last comment appeared. Do another one. Marv stared at it for a long time. Do another one. Not fear me, not what are you, not dear God, the legends are true, do another one. He should have been insulted. He was insulted. And yet, 19 people had watched. Somebody wanted more. He looked around the ruined shed and understood for the first time something true about the modern world. The fire had changed shape. People still gathered around it. They still waited for stories. They still wanted to see something strange come out of the dark. They had simply stopped looking at the woods. He picked up the notebook. Under Create Account, he wrote, Make second video. Then after a moment, more frightening. From the house, Marv? Yes? If you're bleeding, do it outside. I'm not bleeding. He checked. Much. Debbie's groan carried through 2 walls in a rainstorm. Marv looked at the phone in his hands, small, bright, waiting. It was not a wise expression on his face. It was not the expression of a creature who had learned the correct lesson. It was the expression of a creature who had just found a new forest and believed he knew how to haunt it. He pressed record. Episode 3, Swamp Dad. 3 days later, Marv had posted 7 videos. The results were disappointing. The Legend Returns earned 23 views. Midnight in the Pine Barrens earned 31. Evidence of supernatural activity earned 29. And one commenter suggested the supernatural activity was a squirrel. Marv blocked that person. The 4th video did better, but only because Marv slipped while landing on a branch. Several viewers described the result as relatable. Marv found this deeply insulting. By Friday evening, he was back in the diner staring at his phone. Debbie refilled his coffee. How's the haunting business? People have no standards. Uh-huh. One of them asked if I had merchandise. Did you? Of course not. Missed opportunity. He grumbled into his coffee. Across the room, Earl and Frank were arguing about fishing. The town moved around him in its usual rhythm. Forks, coffee, the steady murmur of people who had known each other too long to be interesting to one another. Then Marv's phone buzzed, then again, then 5 more times. Everything okay? Debbie said. I don't know. The notifications kept coming. Comments, likes, shares. The numbers were climbing and climbing fast. Marv opened the app. One of his videos had exploded. Not one of the good ones. Not the careful haunting, not the atmospheric one, not the mysterious one. This one showed Marv attempting a dramatic landing on a fallen log. The log immediately broke. Marv disappeared into a patch of mud. The clip ended on a noise that sounded suspiciously like swearing. 30,000 views. Which one was it? Debbie asked. He showed her. She watched it, then laughed so hard she had to hold on to the booth. It's not funny. You fell into a swamp. I live in a swamp. Exactly. The views kept climbing. 50,000, 70,000, 100,000. Someone had set it to music. Someone else had turned him into a looping image. A third had captioned it, When Monday Hits, which meant nothing to Marv, though he was beginning to dislike Mondays on principle. The diner door opened and Tyler Harris walked in. College-educated, professional know-it-all. He looked at his phone, then at Marv, then back at his phone. No way. He came toward the booth. You're Swamp Dad. The diner went still. I'm sorry? Swamp Dad, just without the makeup, the guy from the videos, everybody's watching these. He shook his head, delighted. Dude, you're hilarious. A part of Marv died, not the important parts, the dignified parts. He remembered too late that he had filmed himself in his human face before shifting into devil form. The internet had not met the Jersey Devil. The internet had met Marv. I am not, he said. You totally are. Tyler wandered off, pleased with the world. The diner went back to breathing. Marv looked at Debbie. Swamp Dad, she said. Don't. Swamp Dad. Debbie, I am trying very hard not to enjoy this. I am a creature of nightmares. Apparently, you're also a content creator. He lowered his head onto the table. Outside, rain tapped the windows. Inside, his phone kept buzzing. By the end of the week, Marv had 72,000 followers. He hated every one of them. The comments were unbearable. Swamp Dad is back. Protect this man. He's trying his best. Marv was not trying his best. He was attempting to inspire terror. There was a difference. Apparently, no one could see it. The following Tuesday, 2 teenagers walked into the diner. Neither was from Leeds Hollow. Tourists, the first Marv had seen in months. They spotted him at once. Holy crap, it's him. They came to the booth. Can we get a picture? No. Please? Absolutely not. 5 minutes later, there was a picture. Marv looked miserable in it. The teenagers seemed delighted. By lunch, 3 more groups had come. By dinner, 6. The motel reported itself booked for the weekend. The gift shop sold out of Jersey Devil merchandise. Even the alpaca sock vendor reported record sales. Nobody understood why, least of all the alpaca. The town council called an emergency meeting, which in Leeds Hollow meant 6 people in the church basement and a plate of cookies. Jessica Brown stood at the front holding printouts. Tourism is up 400%. Silence. How? Said Frank. I don't know. Maybe people are interested in the Jersey Devil again, Earl said. They're coming because of the videos, Jessica said. The funny ones. But nobody thinks he's real, Tyler said. Didn't say they did, said Earl. The room went quiet. The thought sat there in the middle of the cookies. Nobody thought he was real, and they were showing up anyway, spending money, taking pictures, saying the name Leeds Hollow out loud again. Marv sat in the diner watching another video pass 1 million views. This one involved him getting stuck in a hammock. He had never intended to sit in the hammock. The hammock had made the decision for him. The comments were worse this time. Swamp Dad needs a hug. He looks like he pays his taxes early. What's wrong now? Debbie asked. Apparently I have responsible energy. She laughed hard enough to set down her tray. Then Marv noticed the diner. It was full. Every booth. The lot outside was full too. People were talking, laughing, and ordering food. Through the window, a family posed for photographs under the old welcome sign, the sign nobody had cared about a month ago. Debbie slid into the booth across from him. Notice anything? They're laughing at me. Besides that. He looked again. The packed room, the tourists, the noise, the life. Looks a little different, doesn't it? She said. Maybe. You helped. I didn't help. I fell out of a tree. Same result. Out the window, a small girl tugged her father's sleeve and pointed at the tree line. Not afraid, just curious. Her father smiled and pointed too. Marv watched them a while, then looked away. It bothered him, and he could not have said why. Far from the warm windows of the diner, deep where the pines grow close and the trails give out, and the cell signal dies, an old thing stirred. It had been still for a long time. Stillness had cost it nothing. The woods had emptied over the years, fewer lanterns, fewer footsteps, fewer reasons to wake, and so it had not woken. Now the woods were filling again. Cars on the old roads, voices off the trails, lights where there had been no lights in a generation, all of it drawn, though none of them knew it, by a clip of a grumpy monster falling into a swamp. The old thing did not know what Swamp Dad was either. It only knew the woods were full again. It opened its eyes. Episode 4, second place. The Leeds Hollow Jersey Devil Festival had not been held in 6 years. The last one drew 40 people, 11 of whom were related to the organizer, and ended early on account of rain and disinterest. The town had quietly retired it, the way you retire an old dog, with affection and relief, and a refusal to discuss it further. This year, the council brought it back. They had little choice. The tourists kept coming. They wanted something to do with their weekend besides photograph a welcome sign and eat at a diner, and a town that does not give visitors something to do will find the visitors invent their own entertainment, usually involving private property. So the festival returned. Banners went up across Main Street. A stage was assembled in the lot behind the hardware store. Ned Wheeler, who assembled it, declared it structurally sound and then privately advised people not to jump on it. Marv watched the preparations with the expression of a man watching his own surprise party being organized in front of him. "I don't see why I have to go," he said. "Because you're the reason it's happening," Debbie said. "That's exactly why I shouldn't go." He went. The festival was, by Leeds Hollow standards, enormous. There were booths, there was funnel cake. There was a man selling T-shirts that read, "I survived the Pine Barrens," which struck Marv as premature. The alpaca sock vendor had returned, triumphant. Mrs. Callahan ran the library's table and was signing people up for cards with the zeal of a missionary. Tyler Harris had a booth of his own, where he sold something called artisanal pork roll, which was pork roll at twice the price. And everywhere, were Jersey Devils, children in plastic horns, teenagers in face paint, a grown man in a full rubber suit sweating bravely, cardboard wings, felt wings. One ambitious soul had built wings out of an umbrella and was being asked to stop. They were all wrong, the horns were wrong, the wings were wrong, the faces were wrong in ways Marv could not even put into words because the correct version was standing in the middle of them holding a funnel cake he had not wanted and could not remember accepting. Nobody looked at him twice. He was, after all, just Swamp Dad. The man from the videos. People wanted pictures, and he gave them miserably, posing beside their cardboard horns, and the photos came out looking like a tired father at a theme park. "Having fun?" Debbie said, appearing beside him. "This is a nightmare." "You wanted to be seen?" "I wanted to be feared." "You'll have to pick one. The market's spoken." At 7 o'clock, Jessica Brown took the stage and announced the main event, the Jersey Devil Look-alike Contest. First prize, $50 and a year of free pork roll from the diner, which Debbie had donated and was already regretting. "You should enter," Debbie said. "I will not." "You'd win." "I would obviously win. I am the Jersey Devil." "So enter." "It's beneath me." He did not enter. He watched. 8 contestants took the stage, the man in the rubber suit, 2 children, a woman whose costume was, Marv admitted privately, not bad, and a man named Greg from out of town in a store-bought costume with light-up eyes who had clearly spent money. The crowd cheered for Greg. The judges, Earl, Mrs. Callahan, and Franken, conferred. They gave it to Greg. Marv stood very still. "He has light-up eyes," he said. "He does," Debbie agreed. "My eyes do not light up." "No, mine are better." "They're more tasteful," she said, which is not the same thing, and they both knew it. Something in Marv that he would not have named, pride, dignity, 300 years of being the only true article in a county full of stories, got up and walked onto the stage on its own. He entered the consolation round. He stood beside Greg. He let his human face go honest for half a second, the way he never did in public, and let them see. The crowd applauded politely. One judge gave him a 6. "Costume's a little plain," Frank said, not unkindly. No offense. Greg really committed. Marv came in second. The real Jersey Devil came in second at being the Jersey Devil to a man named Greg with batteries in his head. He returned to Debbie. She had the grace not to laugh, which cost her visibly. "Second place," she said. "Don't. Out of 300 years, that's not bad." It was some time after that, after the contest, after the second funnel cake he also did not remember accepting, that Marv noticed the frogs had stopped. It is the kind of thing only a creature of the woods would notice. A festival is loud, music, voices, a generator, a child losing a balloon at full volume. Underneath all of it, always, the pine barrens keep their own sound. The frogs in the bog, the insects, the small, constant business of a living forest. Marv had heard it every night for 300 years and stopped noticing it about 290 years ago. You notice it again the instant it stops. It had stopped. The frogs, the insects. At the edge of the festival, where the lights gave out and the trees began, the woods had gone perfectly quiet. Marv set down the funnel cake. He walked to the edge of the light. Nobody noticed. Swamp Dad wandering off was not news. He stood where the gravel turned to pine needles and looked into the dark, and the dark, for the first time in 300 years, was not home. There were eyes in it, not animal eyes. Marv knew every animal in these woods by the shine of them, the green of a deer, the gold of a fox, the flat coin glow of a raccoon thinking about your trash. These were none of those. They were pale and they were high, higher than a deer, higher than a man, and they did not catch the festival light so much as keep it, the way still water keeps a moon. They were not looking at Marv. They were looking past him, at the crowd, at the booths and the funnel cake and the children in plastic horns and the whole warm, noisy mass of people that a grumpy monster falling into a swamp had drawn back into the woods. The eyes considered them at length, the way you might consider a set table. Then they were gone. The frogs started again, all at once, as though a hand had lifted off them. The festival roared on behind him, oblivious. "You all right?" Earl Dawson had come up beside him, a paper cup of coffee in hand, watching the tree line. Old men and old animals share a habit of looking where the trouble is before anyone tells them there's trouble. "Fine," Marv said. "You don't look fine. You look like you saw something out there." Marv said nothing. Earl took a sip of his coffee. He did not look away from the trees. "My grandfather used to say the devil wasn't the worst thing in these pines, just the loudest. He said it lightly, the way you mention weather. Used to say the devil was the one that kept the rest of it asleep, by making noise, by being seen." He glanced at Marv, mild as anything. "Funny old stories." Marv looked at him. "You've been awful quiet these last few years, Marv. Out in those woods, keeping to yourself." He finished the coffee. "Anyway, good festival. Town needed it." He walked back toward the lights, an old man at a party, and left Marv standing at the edge of the dark with the dawning, unwelcome understanding of the thing that had been bothering him since the diner. He had wanted to be seen. He had gotten the whole town to look at the woods again. And the woods had been quiet for a reason. Episode 5, 1 star, Too Much Swamp. The tourists started arriving on a Thursday. By Saturday, they had become a problem. Marv sat on the porch of his swamp house in full Jersey Devil form, watching strangers wander through his yard. Some took pictures, some filmed videos. One man appeared to be reviewing the swamp. "How do you review a swamp?" Marv said. Debbie sat beside him with a glass of iced tea, enjoying herself a great deal more than the situation warranted. "1 star, she said. Too much swamp." Marv grunted. A family approached cautiously. The parents hung back. Their daughter marched right up to the porch. She couldn't have been older than 8. "Hi," she said. "Hello. You're the Jersey Devil." "Finally, somebody gets it. Your costume is amazing." Marv stared at her. "Don't," Debbie said. "I wasn't going to say anything." "Can I touch the wing?" the child asked. "No." The child immediately touched the wing. The feathers shifted. The wing twitched. The girl gasped. "Whoa!" "See?" Marv said. "The animatronics are incredible." She ran back to her parents. Marv watched her go. "You almost had her," Debbie said. "I literally moved the wing." "Kids today have seen robots do gymnastics. You're competing with technology." Before Marv could respond, a voice called from the path. "Morning, Swamp Dad." Marv groaned. Tyler Harris emerged from the trees carrying a cardboard drink tray. "Brought coffee." "Why?" "You seem grumpy." "There are tourists in my yard." "Exactly. Coffee helps." He handed a cup to Debbie, then one to Marv, who accepted it despite himself. "You know, this is great for the town," Tyler said. "People keep touching me." That's how you know you're popular. A tourist approached carrying a notebook. Excuse me? No? Quick question. How long does it take to get into the costume? Marv closed his eyes. That's what I wanted to know too, Tyler said. It isn't a costume. Right, method acting. No. The dedication is impressive. Tyler. Yeah? Suppose I really was the Jersey Devil. Okay. Suppose the wings were real, the horns were real. Suppose all of it was real. Tyler thought about it. That'd be cool. That's it? Pretty much, he shrugged. I mean, have you seen the news lately? A real Jersey Devil wouldn't even crack the top 10 weirdest things this year. Debbie laughed so hard the iced tea nearly came out her nose. A tourist held up a plush Jersey Devil. The toy had giant eyes and a goofy smile. Look, it's you. I don't like that thing, Marv said. I know, said Debbie. Why is it smiling? Branding, said Tyler. I hate that word. For a few minutes, the porch settled into an odd sort of peace. Tourists wandered, cameras clicked, people laughed. The town was busier than it had been in years. Leeds Hollow was alive again. Even Marv had to admit that. Then a sound drifted through the trees, faint, far away. A long, mournful howl. Marv froze. The good humor went out of his face. Beside him, Debbie went still. She had heard it too. The tourists kept talking. They hadn't noticed. The howl came again. Longer this time, older, wrong. Tyler frowned. You hear that? Marv stood, his eyes fixed on the dark wall of trees beyond the clearing. Something moved out there, just for a moment, watching, waiting. The thing crawling up his spine had nothing to do with tourists or followers or views. Marv, said Debbie. He looked slowly at the tourists, the cameras, the line of cars parked outside his swamp, the child currently trying to pet his tail. Then he looked at Debbie. We're going to have to move. Episode 6, The Wrong Question. The clearing sat deep in the pines, far beyond the trails, the tourists, and the people who thought the woods ended where the cell service did. Marv landed on a fallen pine and folded his wings. He wasn't surprised to find someone waiting. Earl Dawson sat on a stump with a thermos balanced on one knee. Evening. You know, most people would scream. At my age, that's wasted energy. Marv snorted. You lost? Nope. Wanted to talk. To the Jersey Devil? To Marv. You know? Course I know. You think you're subtle. I've been hiding for 300 years. You've been buying pork roll at the same diner for 30. Earl had a sip. Jersey Devil disappears, Marv disappears. After a while, a person notices patterns. You never told anybody. Wasn't my business. You weren't hurting anybody. Who else knows? Mrs. Patterson, probably. She's smarter than me, Frank suspected. Suspected? Frank thinks everybody's the Jersey Devil. Fair. Then, because the woods had gone quiet around them, you saw it too. Earl nodded. Down by the old cranberry bog. Thought it was a bear at first. He turned the cup in his hands. Then I realized bears don't have that many legs. That's concerning. Felt concerning. Earl looked off into the dark. My granddad used to tell a story. His granddad told it to him on back. You know how those go. Gets a little taller every generation. Way he told it, there was something in these pines long before you. Took folks now and then. Then one winter you turned up, and after that people stopped going missing. Coincidence? Could be. Granddad didn't think so. And he blamed me. Other way round. Figured you ran it off. Marv laughed. That's ridiculous. I didn't run anything off. I wanted people out of my woods so I could sleep. You don't understand. For 3 centuries, I've been jumping out of bushes and stealing unattended pork roll. Protective behavior takes many forms. I threw a fish at a Boy Scout in 1984. Did he come back? Marv paused. No. See? Marv stared at him. Earl looked completely serious. That's your evidence? Best I've got. Just an old story. Earl screwed the cap back on the thermos. But the woods are full again, Marv, and things get used to being left alone. A howl rolled through the trees, closer than before. Wrong. Something moved between the trunks, then was gone. Earl stood, knees complaining. Either I'm losing my mind, he said, or my granddad wasn't. He pointed toward the dark. You know what I think. You keep worrying whether people still believe in the Jersey Devil. He nodded toward the distant lights of town. Question is whether the Jersey Devil still believes in Leeds Hollow. For once, Marv didn't have a smart answer. The woods fell silent, and somewhere beyond the trees, something listened. Episode 7. Somebody has to protect the idiots. 3 weeks later, the account disappeared. No announcement, no countdown, no dramatic farewell, just one final video. Marv sat in front of the camera wearing his human face, the same red complexion, the same tired expression, the same look of a man who regretted every decision that had brought him to this moment. He cleared his throat. Hello, everyone. A long pause. I've received a lot of questions about the Jersey Devil. Another pause. So I'd like to clear things up. He glanced down at a sheet of paper Debbie had written for him, then continued. The Jersey Devil is not real. The words nearly stuck in his throat. The wings were practical effects. The flying was camera work. The glowing eyes were editing. A beat. The screaming was mostly raccoons. Somewhere off camera, Debbie snorted. Marv ignored her. I appreciate everyone's support. I appreciate the interest in Leeds Hollow. I appreciate the tourism. A longer pause. Then, please stop coming to my swamp. The video ended. The account vanished 20 minutes later. The internet immediately split into camps. Some believed him, some didn't. Some insisted the deletion proved everything had been real. Others claimed it was an elaborate marketing campaign. Several people blamed the government. One man blamed Canada. The arguments continued for months. Marv never read any of them. He was busy moving. The new house sat several miles deeper in the pines. No road, no hiking trails, no tourists, at least none that had found it yet. Debbie stood on the porch watching him wrestle a sofa through the front door. Need help? No. The sofa became stuck. Looks like you need help. The sofa is the problem. The sofa has been in 3 houses. It's developing opinions. Eventually, they got it inside. Debbie sat on the porch steps. Marv joined her. The forest stretched in every direction. Quiet, peaceful, the way he liked it. For a while, neither spoke. Then Debbie glanced sideways. Think they'll find us? Eventually. Then why move? Marv thought about it. Principle. Debbie nodded. That seemed reasonable enough. A distant howl echoed through the trees. Not Marv, the other one. The sound rolled through the forest and faded. Neither of them smiled. You going? She said. Marv sighed. Looks like it. Be careful. Always am. Debbie raised an eyebrow. Usually am. He stood, spread his wings, and vanished into the darkness between the trees. The following summer, a group of teenagers ignored every warning sign they encountered. This was not unusual. The signs were very clear. Danger, no camping. Stay on trails. Do not enter after dark. The teenagers treated these instructions as suggestions. By midnight, they had wandered well off the marked trail. A campfire burned. Phones glowed. Someone was filming a video. Someone else was scrolling. A third was trying to get enough signal to live stream. A branch snapped somewhere in the darkness. Nobody looked up. A distant howl drifted through the trees. Nobody reacted. Something moved between the pines, watching, waiting, ancient, hungry. Still nobody noticed. Then a shadow dropped into the middle of the campsite. The fire exploded into sparks. The teenagers screamed. A towering figure stood before them, wings spread wide, horns silhouetted against the moonlight, red eyes burning, the Jersey Devil. One teenager lowered his phone. "Whoa, nice costume." Marv closed his eyes. Not this again. Behind them, deep among the trees, he caught movement. The other thing, waiting, closer than it should have been. Marv pointed toward the trail. "Listen carefully." The teenagers stared. "You idiots need to leave. Now." Something in his voice finally reached them. Not fear, not terror. Instinct. The kind that had kept human beings alive long before they invented phones. The teenagers looked toward the darkness. For the first time all night, they paid attention. One by one, they gathered their things, and within minutes they were gone, complaining, confused, already planning the videos they would post about the encounter. Marv watched until the last flashlight beam disappeared. Then he turned toward the deeper woods, toward the waiting darkness, toward the job he never realized he had been doing. He spread his wings and disappeared into the pines. The people of Leeds Hollow spent generations wondering whether the Jersey Devil was real. They asked the wrong question. The question was never whether the monster existed. The question was why. Some stories survive because they are true, others survive because somebody needs them to. And somewhere beyond the edge of Leeds Hollow, in the deep green shadows of the Pine Barrens, one very grumpy monster continues his work. Not because he was chosen, not because he was destined, but because somebody has to protect the idiots. The end.